Welcome to my hometown of Superior, Arizona. Welcome back to Arizona Barrio Stories, Latino USA TV. I am your hostess, Angie Gomez-Byrd, coming to you from my hometown of Superior, Arizona. Please help me welcome my next guest, David Herrera. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
What is this interesting piece of work you have here?
In the mines, when I was younger, I worked for 5 summers here when I was going to ASU. And I loved everything about the mines. But I found this, but in the mines, these chipboards, you were given your payroll number. And when you went into the mine, you put it somewhere on your helmet, either on a rubber band or jacked it somewhere, you know, where you could get to it. And at the end of the day, you had to come back and put it back on the chipboard. Well, what happens is that when this guy didn't show up, and they said, hey, this guy didn't show up, go back and look for him, he's on this level or on this tunnel or whatever. And when they couldn't find him or his hat or his chit, they had to redo the numbers again. I found this in a garage sale here in Superior, so I know it was authentic. And I had my brother make the board, and we put Magma on it just to kind of make it look authentic and stuff like that. And we even used copper nails on it. But the chipboards were the way that they kept track of the workers, you know. And so it was very tragic stories. Like the first time I was aware of this, I asked my dad, like when Mr. Dinogene died here in Superior, his nickname was Superman. And he died, and then I said, well, how did they know that he was missing? And he says, well, you know, they saw that he didn't report at the end of the shift, and so then they went back to look for him, you know. And so this was the way, their safety measures, you know. When I worked at the mines, you know, I had numbers that were big, like 1640 or whatever. So that tells you how many employees they had at that time. And so I was responsible for my chip when I worked at the mines. But at the smelter, you didn't have to do that. You know, so and I worked 3 summers at the smelter, 1 summer underground welding ore cars, and then the last summer working cementation, like putting cement. So that's what this is all about. But we just try to make it as authentic as possible for the time frame.
Well, that's some very valuable information. And I noticed you brought
some rocks,
some pieces.
Yeah. The interesting thing was that my father felt that so many of the miners did not know the rocks. And he always felt like he should teach us stuff. So the very first rock that I got was fool's gold, you know, iron pyrite. And he made me repeat it to him for like a couple of weeks until I knew it. And then he brought me the next one, which is bornite, which is with a rock that the previous guest was talking about, high grade copper. It's called the peacock rock because it's iridescent. It puts a little blue and red and purple, very beautiful, very high grade copper. So I brought those. So my father would teach me by bringing me different copies of it and whatever. And eventually I took geology at ASU, and I've been an avid rock collector ever since. But, and then I want to talk about this helmet too before I get too carried away. This is an older helmet. This was made out of leather. And the old miners at the beginning of the century would put these are carbide lamps, and what you do is you would put a carbide rock in there in the bottom, and then you would put water on top, and then you would put it to drip. As it drips down, it hits the carbide and it creates an oxyacetylene gas that comes up through here, and then you would strike it and it would light that little and it would keep it consistently on. So this is the kind of helmets that they used at the beginning of, you know, mining up until maybe the 1950s and 60s. My dad would have an electric one that would go over, and they would take this out and put the other one back in. So these were very nice. I have other samples of hats. I collected like about 10 different hats. But this one, because it's older, it's leather, and it was painted over. I thought you guys would like to see it. But this was the beginning of oxyacetylene tank burning and everything. Once they could make this lighter, and then they realized if you increase the oxygen, you could actually burn metal with it, this oxyacetylene combination.
What other information would you like to share about the geography and geology surrounding Superior, Arizona?
I love history. I studied a lot of history, but the thing that I find the most amazing is that people don't know about picket post, and Apache Leap. Apache Leap was formed when two plate tectonics, when one gets subducted, the water that it drags underneath creates a lot of heat in the back, and it causes that big. So Apache Leap was a big uplift, and that uplift and that range goes all the way from here all the way into Mexico. So you'll find that all the mines are on this plain: Superior, Kearney, Hayden, Mammoth, Salmon Well, and you go down to Mexico to Bisbee, Douglas, and Cananea. This is the same thing. When the geology of it, as it moved, it kept doing it different times. Eventually, the last one was in California, and that rift of the same thing, a subduction, brought up the gold because it just drags all the quartz and the gold together. So that's why this area is so rich. The other thing I want to mention to you is that what people don't realize is that Fray Marcos de Niza traveled up in this area in 1539, I believe, and he went to Hayden and he turned and he went up the Gila River. 300 years later, people were using his maps, but it wasn't as clear, so the United States government wanted to make it better and claimed that they did all of this. But for 300 years, miners had been up here. But this escarpment of Apache Leap was not letting the U.S. cavalry go and infiltrate the Apache tribes. That's why they were in Oak Flats, because in Oak Flats, they would be there to watch what was going on. So the U.S. cavalry started a little camp right here at Picket Post. It was just a picket post with a heliograph station, and it was to monitor the Indian movements, and that's where the story about Apache Leap, where they chased them up there and they went off and killed themselves rather than be captured. But the interesting thing was that the U.S. cavalry had no way of controlling the tribes because the blockage here in Superior. But to the north, where the Silver King is right now, a General Stoneman this is the history of the United States. We make generals to make roads so that miners could get and take land that doesn't belong to them, as usual. And so what happened is General Stoneman supervised the grade up here by the Silver King mine, and one of his employees, a guy named Sullivan, he found black rock, took it home. Years later, he figured out what it was. It was pure silver. So he came back, and then they started the Silver King mine. And then from the Silver King mine, they needed to use the waters over here where we call the jungle. There's the old Pinell Town site. And if you go there, there's ruins and everything, pretty cool. And then between there and up there, there was a tent city just on the other side of the highway, where if you go over there, you'll see where Mattie Earp was buried. That's Wyatt Earp's ex-wife. And so there was a Mexican tent town, I call it. And this is all a lot of pretty cool stuff. Now, once the Sullivan person told people about the discovery over there, then the Silver King became big, Pinell became big. But then when they found the copper deposit here on Monzonite, they started going down. That's when everybody moved to Superior, and they just picked up the houses and moved them. They picked up anything that was wooden and brought it over here. So I just wanted to let people know some of the stuff, and yeah. And you could still go out to the old Pinell Town site and find like horse bridles and nails and porcelain where the bathrooms were, the outhouses were. So it's all still very And there was a lot of water that ran through there, and still water there right now.
Let's talk about Apache Tears.
Oh, Apache Tears. Again, the heliograph station that the cavalry had, they would have guys up there with mirrors, and they would do where the Indians were. The Indians would always defeat them, but on one occasion, the cavalry sent troops going to Florence, and when the Indians verified that they were going to Florence, then they went, there's a way just beyond Superior to get up on the Apache Leap, but they set another detachment around, and they blocked the only place where they could go off. So they, rather than to be captured, they jumped. And so, like, Geronimo jumps off the whatever. And so that was part of the legend, but they continued it in that where the Indians had their camp over there was the only place where they found Apache Tears. There's a rhyolite deposit with obsidian and everything, and it would come out, but it's the only place in the world where obsidian comes out in a little ball, So the Indian ladies would say that's where our tears hit the ground and it turned into Apache Tears. So it's pretty cool. And it comes up in different places out here. So I think it's fascinating. But Apache Tears or obsidian will crystallize. Like if you have a lava flow that comes out and it hits water, that lava flow will crystallize and become very glassy.
Do you have a collection of Apache Tears?
It's like between Apache Tears, bornite, and other rocks, But like I say, my father was a rock collector, I was a rock collector, and then I started polishing rocks. So it was a love affair to this day. So.
And you said you had more artifacts at home, correct?
When you're a Junkie Joe, you collect whatever. If it looks old, drag it home,
Make sure to give it to my producer so he can take pictures of all of it.
Yeah, I just, so this is a pleasure to come and let you know but I think those facts that I gave you are important because a lot of people don't realize it. They don't realize that that for 300 years before General Kearney came and came this way, they have been studying the maps of Fray Marcos de Niza for 300 years.
Wow.
I mean, but they didn't give him much credit, But all of the generals in the U.S. cavalry, their primary job was to make roads so that miners could come and decimate whatever was there and make it part of the...
Well, thank you so much for sharing such valuable information.
Sorry I had to talk so fast.
No, you're fine. Thank you, David Herrera, for being with us today.
Thank you.
I'm Angie Gomez-Byrd with Arizona Barrio Stories and Latino USA TV, coming to you from Superior, Arizona.